today we are doing the eyebrow. Maria here, welcome to my channel. Today I thought I would do a tutorial on how to get brows like this. So yeah, my brows, I don't tend to overdo them. I like it a little bit more natural. So I thought I'd show you kind of what I do to get my brows looking like this. First of all, I thought I'd talk about products that you can use. So number one is using an eyebrow pencil. And usually they come with a little spoolie on the end, which is a super a handy little tool to have. Now, one of the best ones is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Wiz. So that's an excellent pencil. They've got it in tons of different colors, and it's got a super fine lead. Like this one is just a normal pencil lead, but if the Brow Wiz has a super fine lead, which really helps in getting little fine strokes. So it's an excellent option, especially if you have really sparse eyebrows. I find that that one looks a little bit more natural if you're making the little hairs with that. So that's one option. Another option would be something like this Bobbi Brown brow powder. And that works really good. In this Bobbi Brown one, there's two different shades. So yeah, that's another option. Now, when I use a brow powder especially, I always use a brow gel. You don't have to, but I like to do that. A lot of times the brow powders don't necessarily dry down. So, you know, if you go like this, you end up with a big smear. So that's why I like setting it with a gel. At least that's what I found. Now, my favorite product to use is the Anastasia Dip Brow Pomade. And it's just, it's very similar to what you'd get if you got a gel liner. And then I use a brush. So I use this fine little brush. Now, Anastasia makes an excellent brush that has a spoolie on the end, so that's something to keep in mind. This one's just from e.l.f. It's a little angled brush and it works fantastic for me. Now, when you go into the store, not all brushes are created equal. So I've noticed with the e.l.f. brushes, I have one that's a little bit thicker, this one's a little bit thinner, and I want a really thin amount of brush hairs at the very tip so that I can get nice precise lines. So this is the product that I use the most, and what I do is I just put it on the back of my hand and then I do it back up so it stays moist in the container. So a few products that you would need is, again, a spoolie, and that's to comb through your brows at the very end. It's good to have an eyebrow brush or this kind of brush. So this is a great tool to have to, first of all, cut your eyebrows if you're needing to do that, and to brush through them. So this is handy. And then to have some sort of concealer, a light eyeshadow, or a nude colored pencil that you can kind of just kind of clean up the edges if you so choose. So those are the products that you need. I personally prefer the dip brow. A lot of people prefer something like a pencil. So those are the products that I use. I can't think of anything else to tell you. The best, something to keep in mind is if you have blonde hair, you should be going about 2 shades darker in your eyebrow color. If you have dark hair, you should be going a shade or 2 lighter. Now for me, it's hard to find, like my hair is really dark. If I go too light, it looks weird. So this is the color I've chosen, and it's, well, I'd say maybe 1 shade lighter than my actual hair color. But yeah, so that's something to consider, and I think that's all I can think of to tell you. So we will get into me showing you how to do it, and we'll go through kind of how to figure out where your arch is and all of that kind of stuff. And I think that that's it. Okay, so I'm going to do this eyebrow, and I'm going to use my Anastasia Dip Brow Pomade, and I'm using it in the color Ebony. I had been using dark brown, but I found that it was too, okay, it was too warm of a shade for me, so I'm going with this one. Now, what I like to do if I'm using a dip brow, I get my brush, I drag a little bit onto my brush, and then I put it on the back of my hand like that. And that's basically all the product I need. And then I do it right back up again, just so that it stays hydrated. I don't want to dry it out, so that's a good way to do it. Now, I've got a little bit on my brush here. Now, the way that you would find where you want to begin your eyebrow, or where you want it to end, is you would go kind of like, I go like about here on my nostril. So my top nostril part is right here. So I kind of just do it on the side, and then you're going to bring it up. And then I just mark it. So I would want it to come to about that point. I'm going to just mark this one while I'm at it. And I just want a little mark so I can see how far I'm going. And then to get your arch where it should, I go to the same place and I would go to my pupil, and then I would mark it there. So you're going to that same place, kind of at the, kind of close to the top of your nostril on the side, and then you line it up right with the pupil. And then you bring it up, and that is where your arch is going to be. Now for me, that's exactly where my arch is. So I'm not going to mark it because I don't need to mark it, but that's kind of the guideline that you want to use. Just the side of your nose, kind of the top part, or even the mid part of your nostril. Line it up with your pupil, and then you have a guide for where you're going to do the top part of your arch. Can you see that little mark there? Thought I'd do it just for the sake of doing it. Okay, and then you take your brush, you go down at the base of your nostril and line it up with your eye, or with the corner of your eye, and then you just go right there. So that's where I want my tip to be, right there. And I just put a light dot there so that I can see it. So you just want to kind of make your grid, or your whatever, so that you know where you're going. So then I take my product and I start at this arch part right here, kind of where it begins to arch. And I oftentimes, like, you can take a brush too and just kind of go like this so that you get clean. And I just start here and I just do a sweep up. Now some people, they don't like doing that. They like doing little fine strokes. You can do that too. For me, because my eyebrows are fairly thick, I find that that's the best. So as you can see, I got a line there. And then I just do the same thing on the top. And I anchor my finger on my cheek because it gives me steadier hands. And I would do that even if I was using a pencil. So if I was using a brow wiz or something like that, I'd do the same thing. And then I just follow the natural line. You can extend it if you want thicker eyebrows. I don't like super thick eyebrows, and I feel like mine are full enough. So that's what you do. Some of the things to consider is how much space do you have here? If you've got lots of space, you could actually make this a little bit lower and take it there. If you've got lots of space in your forehead, you could take it up a bit more in that area. So depending on where your space is, where you have the most space, you can kind of, does that make sense? So if you've got a really long forehead, you might want to, if you're making your eyebrows thicker, take it up through here. If you've got a short forehead, but you've got lots of space in there, you might want to take it down a little further and kind of draw your thickness through the bottom part. If you have questions, just leave them. So then I just go like this, and I do that part a little bit lighter, and I just mark that kind of where that's where my high part of the arch is. Okay, and then I just fill this right in, and I do like little strokes. Okay, now at that point, I don't have a whole lot of product on my brow, or on my brush. The other thing that I could do is take a spoolie and just kind of brush it in that way, just to make it even more kind of natural looking. So there I've got the top part of my arch, and see how that makes a difference even between the two of them like that. So now I've got a little bit of product left on my brush, and my line kind of comes naturally down here. So I put it here and I start to push up. And I push up right to that line that I've created. Now I'm going to take a little bit more product just off the back of my hand. And I'm going to just create just really light taps there to look like little hairs. Kind of coming down so that it forms that nice little whatever. I can't even describe it, but anyway, you get the idea. And then I don't draw a line in this part because I want it to look natural. So if you don't draw a line there, you get more of a natural kind of gradient effect. It looks a little more feathery. And of course that depends on your eyebrows and how much eyebrows you have, but I can get away with that. And I've just darkened it by going up like that. Okay, and then this needs to just be kind of fixed a little bit there. And that's the beginning of my eyebrow. Now I'm going to take a bit more product. Now the tail is the hardest part for me, and I still haven't really mastered it. But I start the same way. I start here, and that's the high point of my arch and kind of the deepest part of that arch. I'm going to start there, and then I want to drag it down to that line that I created there. And then I want to just kind of join this part up. Okay, and then I'm just doing little strokes again. And then I'm going to deepen that up. I'm just taking the stuff off the back of my hand and darkening it. And there you have it. Now, if you want, you can take like either a corrector, you can take an eyeshadow, you could take something like this pencil here that I use a lot of times in my waterline, and you can just kind of run it right underneath just to sharpen it up if you like. I rarely do that. And then you just kind of blend it out with a whatever. But anyway, that's how I do my eyebrows. Ooh, you know what? I'm going to like right down here, I don't have it quite far enough down. So I'm going to just pull that just really lightly and then pull it through. And then yeah, if you're really sparse in this area, you just take your product, again, whether it be a pencil, whether it be a brush, and just make yourself, like just start stabbing it in just really lightly and make some hairs. Okay, so what do you think? Big difference? Do you notice the way it just lifts the eye? I love like doing weird things like this, but anyway, do you notice how it just instantly gives the eye an eye lift? Like, let me see, I can't see in the viewfinder, but I think it really makes a huge difference as far as just finishing off that eye look. So I'm gonna finish this one and then we'll chat just a little bit more. Okay, so to finish off my brows, you don't have to, but especially if you have thicker eyebrows or like crazy scenarios going on in your eyebrows, to use an eyebrow gel just kind of finishes the look off. So I just run it through just like that. Especially if I use a powder, I definitely like using this because it kind of sets the powder. And so that's it for the brows. So if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section. A lot of times I don't do my brows this defined. I just kind of wanted to show you a little bit more specifically how to get that more carved out look. I don't like a super carved out brow. I prefer it to be a bit more natural. So this is kind of like my little hybrid. If I want to go a little bit more dramatic, that's how I get it. But the one thing that I would say is you have to be careful with how far in you're doing your brows. Now, the interesting thing is that if you have a really narrow bridge, you probably want to keep your eyebrows a little further apart. So mine are bordering to me today on too close. Any closer and I'll look angry. So, or like, you know, Groucho Marx or something like that. So you want to keep that in mind. Now, if you've got a really wide bridge through the nose, to bring your eyebrows in will help narrow that whole entire area. So if you've got a super narrow bridge, maybe keep it a little bit more open. If you have a super wide bridge, you can bring the eyebrows in a little bit further. So that's the last thing that I can think of to tell you. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. Sorry about my crazy voice. And yeah, have an amazing week. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.